All right, old school NBA fans, self-researched NBA facts. Got another video for you. Again, thanks to anybody watching my videos, subscribes to my channel. I really appreciate it. I know I'm a baby channel here, and I was asked by at least a dozen people to do a ranking. I saw in the comments somebody asked about an opinion one. I do have a say-so in a lot of these rankings, but most of it is just pretty much what I would think anyway. Not exact, no. There's a couple players I would have had in the top 25 that aren't. Like, for example, I probably thought Dwayne Wade was for sure would be a top 25 player. He's considered the, some people say third best. I say no way he's better than Jerry West, shooting guard of all time. He's not. Jerry West had a better career than Dwayne Wade did. But yeah, so you only really have 3 shooting guards in here, even though some people have argued that Oscar Robertson was actually shooting guard, part of the time, whatever, but it is what it is. It took me where it took me, and I'm okay with it, no problem. Somebody asked about Isaiah Thomas because of his tough competition, no doubt about it. Isaiah's weaknesses were his peak 5 or even 10 years wasn't very strong. He missed the playoffs earlier in his career and at the end of his career. I know he had injuries and all that, but he wasn't that old. And again, I have to hold the same criteria for everybody. If I go through each player and look at like how they were physically at that time and all that, it would take me a year to put together this list. So, Isaiah probably would have been in the top 30 for sure. Top 20, I don't see it. I just don't. He wasn't even arguably the best player on his team on a couple of those championships. He might have been, leading scorer. Joe Dumars won one of the finals MVPs. Dennis Rodman won Defensive Player of the Year. It's hard to say, but he was definitively the best player. He was on a very deep team. I always looked at Detroit of more of a team effort when they won those championships than I did one player and role players. That's just not what happened. The depth of Detroit with their defense. Isaiah, when he was the best player, and he still had like Kelly Tripucka and John Long early in his career, and Bill Laimbeer and Vinnie Johnson. He had a pretty good team. He didn't really do that much with it. Not until he got the Dumars, the Adrian Dantleys, the Mark Aguirres, Rodman. Then the winning started. And then as some of those guys got a little older in like 92, 93, then you saw the winning drop again. So, I understand about Isaiah Thomas. I really do. He did have some very stiff competition, no doubt about it. And they won quite a bit of that stuff. But overall, he just didn't make it. He was, I want to say, right around number 30. I think it was him and Dirk Nowitzki. Somebody else asked about Dirk Nowitzki. The 26 through 30 would have been Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley, Isaiah, Dirk, and who am I forgetting? There's one other player, Bob Cousy. That was 26 through 30. And Stockton was right there too. What hurt Stockton was he got upset a lot, and he blew a lot of leads. Now, some people argue that, when you make the playoffs that many times, it's bound to happen. Yes, but that's why these other players in, the top 10 and whatnot, are in the top 10 because they didn't get upset as much. Or if they did, they got a lot of championships to counter being upset. Tim Duncan comes to mind. So anyway, just wanted to get that out of the way. I got number 11 through 19 here. Number 19 is Kevin Garnett. Now, I personally thought he was maybe 20s, like low 20s or something, but it is what it is. That's where he is. He had 3 legitimate shots at a championship. That's it. So again, I don't hold it against Garnett that he only won the 1 championship because he only had 3 legit shots at it. And of course, yeah, he joined Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and all that, but that was a trade that he did not force. He okayed it, but he did not force that trade. That's much different. He has an MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year. That carries a lot of weight. The 9-time first team all defense, also that carried a lot of weight because that's the most anyone's ever done. No one has ever got more than 9 first team all defense. He had, I think, 7 or 8 first team All NBAs. I mean, that carried some weight, sure. The defense carries more than the All NBAs. 4 rebound titles, also getting that league leader in there, carried weight. And Garnett had a very good 10-year peak, and he had a very good longevity for the most part because he came in young, whatever. But, Garnett may have been, I think Johnny Arnett said on his channel that if Garnett was on San Antonio, he would have had a Tim Duncan-like career. And I don't disagree. I mean, there isn't much difference between Duncan and Garnett when you really think about it. I mean, not much. Garnett was a little bit better rebounder. They're both great defenders, both right around the same offensively. I mean, Garnett might have been maybe a little bit better shooter. I don't know. But yeah, just taking the winning out of it and the team aspect, yeah, I would say Garnett and Duncan are almost the same player, a very similar player for sure. Number 18. I think this is the only player in the top 20 who didn't win a championship. Karl Malone, number 18. I always had him more in the 20s, but I'm good with 18. When I looked into it, that's why he became 18, because a lot of this, I had a say-so in the opinion, but some of this stuff here is remarkable, really. He won 2 MVPs, which, that puts him on a list of about, 15, 16 people right there. 14 times he was in the top 8 in MVP. That's very powerful stuff right there. He was actually neck and neck with LeBron until I factored in the championships and all that and whatnot, the finals appearances and all that sort of stuff. But he basically was the same thing as LeBron, with the exception of that. One of 4, he's the only player, or at least on this list, and maybe of all the top 75 players, in the last 50 years who averaged 25 points and 10 rebounds for their career. That was just too powerful to ignore. Scored great points on that. He had 3 legitimate shots at a championship. He won 0. That's what hurt him. That, and he lost 7 times with home court, and he blew 8 leads. That's what hurt him. If he would have had 2 championships and didn't blow as many leads, whatever, Karl Malone's in the top 10, maybe even top 5. So, Karl Malone has an incredible resume, the leading scorer of the entire decade of the 90s, to go on top of everything else. So I'm fine with Karl Malone being number 18. I think he probably deserves that. I mean, he was a great player. I think he had 4-time all defenses. I think 3, and he had them like 1988 and I think all the way to 1999. So he had longevity of being all defense, not just all in one little tight 5-year group. So again, longevity, stats, overall, the MVPs, all that. Karl Malone, was a great, great player, no doubt. And being one of 4 players to have a 25-point, 10 rebound career, I mean, that carried a lot of weight. It really did. Number 17, here's an old school player for you, George Mikan. Higher than I probably would have had him, but it is what it is. He had 6 shots at a championship. He won 5. Now I know that he had probably the best team, which he did 5 out of the 6 times they won it. But in 6 full years, and he played half of another one, so he basically played 6.5 years, and he won 5 championships, 3 scoring titles, 2 rebound titles. He beat Dolph Shays twice in the finals, and that's another guy who was like top 35. Very, very good player. So Mikan, it's all about the winning for him. He didn't have much longevity. His 5-year peak is as good as anybody's. As good as, practically as good as Michael Jordan, as good as Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, all that stuff. He just didn't have the longevity. He didn't play long enough because when the NBA started, I think he was already like 27 years old or something. But George Mikan, I mean, there's not really anything negative you could say about him other than his longevity. That's it. He had 1 negative hit against him. Number 16, Oscar Robertson. I always had Oscar higher than this, but I can live with this. He had 1 MVP, 7 assist titles, 1 scoring title, 2 free throw titles, 1 championship. He was so-so on defense. Didn't have much postseason success. I think he only played 17 series in his whole thing. He missed the playoffs quite a few times. He was the second best player on the team that he won the championship. 1 out of 3 times he won the championship. 3 legitimate shots, went tied, 1-1.
Damn, I got pissed.
So yeah, Oscar Robertson is 16. I'm good with that. I thought he was always a little higher, but he didn't have much postseason success at all. And he played with some good players. I mean, he had Jerry Lucas on his team for a while. And, you know, he blew some leads too. They were up 2-1 on Boston.
Ooh, much better.
All right, yeah, so anyway, Oscar Robertson 16, and that's how it is. Number 15, Steph Curry. Some people have him in the top 10. He did not make it. We'll go through the positive. 2 MVPs, 2 scoring titles, 1 steal title, 4 free throw percentage titles, 4 championships, 1 finals MVP. The 1 out of 4 finals MVP is a small negative. 2 of those rings were on super teams. He had 6 legit shots at winning a title. He won 4. So that's a pretty good percentage. Now, what hurts Curry is there's 2 really major things why he's not in my top 10. One of them is 2 of his rings he was on super teams. Well, I guess 3 things then. Two of his rings were on super teams when Kevin Durant joined. So, I mean, when you have clearly the best roster like that, you know, it's crazy. You know, you weakened Oklahoma City in the process, a team that just took you to 7 games the year before. You know, it's more Durant who did this than Curry, but still. The other thing is Curry's missed the playoffs 4 times out of 13 years. That hurt him as well. And he had decent players, but even without that, even with just a baseline average roster, if you're an all-time great, you need to get your team in the playoffs, period. For example, Michael Jordan, even at 38 through 40 years old on the Wizards, I held it against him that he did not make the playoffs. I was not biased with this at all. You know, sure, there were some things I had an opinion on, but Jordan got no pass for not making the playoffs on the Wizards. He just didn't. The other thing with Curry was the competition was injured a lot. He didn't beat a lot of great teams. His competition just wasn't that great. When he played these teams, they were injured a lot. I've done a video on this before. One that sticks out was the 2017 Spurs. You know, they were beating Curry by, I don't know, I think it was like 27 or 28 points in the third quarter when Kawhi Leonard got hurt. You know, then that kind of hurt him. The Spurs beat the Warriors 2 out of 3 in the regular season. Tony Parker also didn't play. There's a reason to believe the Spurs would have beat the Warriors in 17. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And then there was a bunch of other series too, like in 22 against Memphis, 2015 against Cleveland. Absolutely. You know, yeah, I know 2016 Green got suspended and 2019 Durant was hurt. Thompson missed 1 game. All that, I get that. But I'm just saying, all things considered, the best teams they ever beat was probably the 2016 Thunder and the 2017 Cavs. That's the best teams they really ever beat. Everybody else was just, you know, decent team, I guess, but no real good teams he ever beat, you know? I mean, not really. Okay, number 14, Moses Malone. 3-time MVP winner, finals MVP winner, 1 championship. He had 2 legitimate shots at a title and he won 1 of them. 50%, that's good. 6 rebound titles. He does have the 1 first team all defense. A thing he did good was in 1981, beat the Lakers with Kareem and Magic and Bob McAdoo and Michael Cooper and Jamal Wilkes, 5 Hall of Famers. As a 40-42 team, got all the way to the finals and took the Celtics to 6 games. That was impressive. That's why Moses is, you know, 14. The negative was, you know, he just didn't get to the finals all that much, you know, the championship shots. But when he did, he made the most of them. He really did. You know, so those 2 chances, one of them, he was a 40-42 team. So Moses Malone, man, he's, you know, a great legendary player, no doubt about it. He had a little time in the ABA, and yes, I did include the ABA in with the NBA. I didn't separate. That's crazy. Number 13, Jerry West. Now, yeah, right off the bat, he had 9 trips to the finals and only won 1. But who he lost to did matter. You know, the Celtics all those times. He was 4-time first team all defense, and that only came out in '69. So in 5 years, he got 4 first all-team defenses from like 31 to 35 years old. He won 1 scoring title, 1 assist title. He got a Finals MVP in a losing effort. Jerry West is widely considered the 3rd best shooting guard of all time. Anyway, Jerry West should be a fixture in everybody's top 15. And he was top 13 for me. It was close between him and Moses. I even almost thought Moses was over Jerry West. But Jerry West getting the 4-time all defense over Moses' 1. I mean, that was kind of what settled that. It was tight, though. It was. Number 12 is Dr. J. Dr. J has 3 ABA MVPs, 1 NBA MVP, 2 ABA championships, and 1 NBA championship. So Dr. J had a very good career. He had a good 5-year peak, a very good 10-year peak. He did get upset a few times. A couple series he probably should have won. The '77 finals comes to mind. They were up 2-0, blew that lead. That was held against him. He had 7 legitimate shots at the championship in either the ABA or the NBA. He won 3, which is, it's okay. It's not bad. But Dr. J also had very good stats. I mean, he filled up the stat sheet across the board. And for somebody who was a small forward and not a point forward, it was impressive. You go back and look at his blocks, steals, rebounds, assists, points. I always say that Clyde Drexler was like a poor man's Dr. J because he had similar stat lines a lot of times. But Dr. J was a very good defensive player. And obviously a great offensive player, and he was probably the 2nd best player of the '70s. Some argue he was the best in the '70s, but anyway, Dr. J coming in at number 12. Number 11, sure to be the most controversial on this list without any hesitation. LeBron James, number 11. How did LeBron not make the top 10? I know. Scored incredible points on longevity. He did. Now, he doesn't have a lot of records. That's something that kind of hurt him. His competition was pretty weak. Losing record in the finals. His overall record in the conference finals and finals combined in individual games is 64-59. Barely 500. I mean, that also hurt him right there. He team hopped, so that brought him down. No doubt about it. I did the same with other players too. I wasn't just picking on LeBron. But anyway, he lost 3 games in a row in the finals 6 times. All the ones he lost at least 3 games in a row. That hurt. He lost the most 3 games in a row of anybody on this list in the playoffs. I think it was 10 times. He did have a lot of positives. Like I said, he had a very good 5-year prime. I mean, it was excellent. His 10-year peak, it was very, very good, just not as good as some of the other guys on here. He had 12 legitimate shots at a title and only won 4 of them. So that was kind of low. Everybody in the top 10, did as good or better than that. But anyway, that's just where he landed. He had a lot of positive things, but he also had a lot of negatives. His all defenses, that was great that he had 5 first team and 1 second, but it was all in a tight little window. All his MVPs, half his championships. Outside of that 5-year, he's got 2 championships, 1 scoring title, 1 assist title. That's basically it. And the competition for the finals was really good, but his competition in the first 2 rounds was some of the weakest I've seen. He's next to like Magic Johnson's, was also weak. But the difference is Magic won, 5 out of 9 championships, where LeBron won 4 out of 12. You can't just keep making excuses, why somebody loses, and then you make excuses why somebody wins. I mean, at some point, you got to hold somebody accountable, or you look at the competition, it's like, well, the competition was so weak, no wonder you cakewalked right into the finals. If you would have been in the other conference, you would have been in the finals 4 or 5 times, maybe you would have won 2 championships. But the team hopping definitely hurt him. I made a point to include that. But anyway, that's it. That's my 11 through 19. I mean, I know the people are going to beat me up for it. I get it. But this is where it led me to, and this is how it is. and I'm sticking with every one of these numbers. You know, like I said, there might be a couple that I'd be off a couple, whatever, but for the most part, this is exactly where I would have ranked them anyway. So anyway, that's it. Top 10 hopefully be tomorrow. Still working on that a little bit. You know, there's some of that mid top 10 stuff is, you know, getting pretty hard, but that's it, and thanks for watching.